Hi, gang. So let's talk about the second project that you got to do. So we're in Module 4, and in the third module, we talked about modular programming. And in essence, what that is where we take different functionalities and we try to outsource those into small little compartments. So rather than having one huge block of code that does everything, we can create smaller blocks of code that we reuse over and over again as needed and minimize the amount of code that we have to create and become more efficient by recycling and reusing the things that we've created. In class, when I'm lecturing, I'm always saying something to the effect of, I'm not lazy, I'm just efficient. It's not that I mind typing code, but why should I go retype that same line of code over and over again when all I have to do is type it once and then point to it or invoke what the formal term is or call that function. Now, depending on the language that you're dealing with, some authors, and depending on the industry you're in, they will call these things modules, functions, or methods. I'll lean towards functions and methods more than anything else. Okay, so with this, I'm going to start out up here at the top. And in Python, Python's a very streamlined, limited language compared to, let's say, C#. And in both those languages, there's functionality associated with it. Somebody's created a class of code that will allow us to find out, using the computer's clock, what the current date and time are. And in those classes of code that they've created, there's functionality or methods. So we can go find out, let's say, down to the second, the minute, the day, what hour it is, by invoking those specific functions that exist within that date time class. So to be able to use that date time class, we have to, I guess the best way to word it is, have a relationship with it. But it'd be like saying, hey, call the plumber. Well, I don't know a plumber. Well, if you don't know a plumber, you got nobody to call. And if you refer to that plumber by name, nobody's going to know what you're talking about. So with this, that second line of code that I have, from datetime, import datetime, there's a datetime class that exists, and I want to bring in everything from datetime. Okay, and I'm going to invoke the now function, or there's a method function, either is synonymous, called now. And what that does is it finds out the current date time by invoking the now function. And the now function goes to your computer's clock, checks to find out what is today, all the way down to the millisecond. And it then stores that in now. So we've got an object called datetime, and we took what's being returned by this now function and we're storing it in now. Okay? So now has some attributes associated with it. And if I come down and I look at, say, line 16, now.year. Well, there's a year associated with now. And the year is 2020. There's a time associated with now. So there's different attributes associated with now that we can go have the code return those values, and we can use them. Now, they're being returned to us, and we need to be clear on, whenever we're dealing with any functions or methods, we need to be clear on a few things. First and foremost, think of methods as you're outsourcing something. And when you're outsourcing something, let's say my pool service. I'm outsourcing my pool service. I got a guy. I call that guy. He shows up to take care of whatever I need around my pool. Now, for me to call him, I need to have his name and number in my phone. If I don't have that, I can't reach out to him. There's a couple other things I need to know. I need to know, one, if I'm going to use his service, what does he require from me, and in what form does it have to be in? As well as, is he going to provide a service, go do something on my behalf, or give me something? And if he's going to give me something, I need to know what form that's going to be in. And when I say form, in programming, let's look at that as the data type. So it's in that analogy, so look, we had a lot of rain. I need you to come by and throw an extra tab of chlorine in my pool. No worries. That'll be $5 a tab. Okay. I know how to get a hold of him, but I called him before, so I know the name. I know what he needs from me. He needs $5. I know what he's going to do for me. He's going to take care of throwing a chlorine tab in my pool. Now, that $5, does it matter in what form it's in? He said $5. Is that $5 Canadian? Is that $5 US? Is that the same? No, it's not. So we have to be very specific in the data type that we're dealing with. So, with that said, we created an instance of the datetime class. We invoked it. We found out what the current date and time are. And now I've created some methods, or functions, if you will. And I'll keep saying methods because it's stuck in my head. I'm also teaching C#. And C#, they're all called methods. In Python, you hear them called functions more than you do methods. So in this first one, we're going to def. Keyword, it means define. A function called print welcome message. Now, it's got parentheses after it and then a colon. And this is the definition of this method or function. See, there I go already. And within this function, you'll see this line to the left. That's our indentation mark, meaning everything within this function is indented. And it's indented to the third space. So the D and the E, if you look up here, there's nothing in there. It's the third space is the level of indentation. Now, one of the easiest ways is just come up here where you left off with a colon, hit enter, and it should indent you right to there. Now, the first line, that's a comment. We've seen those before. Line 7 here says welcome message equals, well, we're declaring a string variable called welcome message, and we're putting this message in it. Okay, so I have some value, I've stored it in welcome message. On line 8, I'm invoking or calling the print function, and I'm passing it something. And what am I passing it? Let's skip this first part for a second. This symbol, the asterisk, that means multiplication or times something. The next is a character or a string of one character, which is the period symbol, concatenated together with \n, which means new line. Okay, so what's this say? Len welcome message. So there's a len function that exists. And the len function will tell you how long a string is. How many characters? Now, not just the characters you see, but it counts the spaces as well. So this thing's taking this message up here from line 7 and counting how many characters front to back there are in there, and it's returning a number. that number times period. So we're going to see the period that many times, and then a new line symbol. It's going to print welcome message. So we're passing that string to the print function. And then we do that same thing from line 8 again, but we've got 2 new line escape sequences there after it, or at the end. So I'm going to run this so you can see what happens in that first function. Now, before I do, is that what runs? The first thing that runs is the print welcome message because it's first in the sequence? No, it's not. The first thing that runs is line 32. Okay? On line 32, because of our indentation, that's actually getting run. Print welcome message. So we called or invoked this function. We did it right there on line 32. So we'll go ahead and run it. And it'll jump us down to line 32. It called that function. Let's scroll back up. Comment. Declare the string. Boom. The length of that message times the period. So we see the period that many times. Printed the welcome message. Some more periods. 2 lines. And then the next thing we see will be name equals input your name here. So we've declared a name constant. You know that because it's all caps. It won't change. And we're going to put in there your name. We're also going to put in there age. So we're asking the user for their age. Now they're telling us how old they are. We could have asked them for their birth date and determined their age. Because I know, based on what we saw before up here on line 16, now.year, I can find out what year it is right now. Now I'm not looking at the specific calculation to find out how far we are into the year. I just know that we're in 2020. And somebody says that they're 25, well, I'll just subtract 25 from 2020. And it's an approximate year they were born. So with that said, we're just going to find out how old are they. So tell me, what's your name and how old are you? So they entered their age. We acquired keystrokes. Every time we acquire a keystroke, it's a character being input. And then we have to take it and convert it into an integer because I want a number. I want age to be something that I can manipulate mathematically. So we received it as a string, and then we typecasted it, or we converted it into an integer. So now we've got 2 constants. They're not going to change. At least they won't change while we're running this program. So I've got work left, comma, retirement year equals calculate retirement age. Or calculate retirement. I pass it age. Now calculate retirement. Calculate retirement, that's a function from above. And here's calculate retirement. And we defined calculate retirement. We passed it age. So that's like that money that my pool guy needed from me. And it comes in and work left equals 65 minus age. So work left is how many years you have until you retire. 65 would be the retirement age. We could have stored this in a constant. So 65 less your current age. So if you said you were 25, you got 40 years till you retire. retirement year, and here's that line we've looked at before, retirement year equals int now.year. So now.year is some data that's been collected. I'm going to convert it into an integer. Make sure, if I'm not even sure what it is, data type wise, I'm going to convert it to an integer just to be safe. So now.year converted into an integer, it's a number, 2020, plus 40 that we came up with in line 15, given a 25-year-old age entry. And then we'll store that value in retirement year. Retirement year now has a value of 2060. And we're going to return two values. I usually will try to return just one value, but I can return more than one. And I'm going to return them in a specific sequence. The first one, how many years until you retire? The second one, the year that you retire. So we're going to return those two values. That would be something that is returned by that function, much like if I said to my pool guy, not come by and throw the tab in there, swing by and give me a tab. Hey, I broke the skimmer and I need a pool tab. He delivers skimmer, pool tab in that sequence, and I'm ready to receive each one, and the data types may not be the same, so I need to be clear on the sequence of them. So we come down and look, work left, comma, retirement year. I received those values from that function. And then I invoked or called the output message function and passed it those two values. So now we come up, here's the output message one. It received two things, separated by commas. Order matters, so the order they're in does matter. I printed an empty line. If work left is less than 10, so here's that conditional that we've got to have. I said, I need you to have three different options based on how long they have until they retire. So if they're retiring in less than 10 years, you're in the home stretch. If it's over 10 years, but not 20 years, keep up the good work. And then lastly, you're almost there, equals, and that's the message, almost there. You have a long way to go, keep it up. Now, almost there is receiving a value along the way. So almost there is the message that's being returned. And the message is, congratulations, their name. It will only be work left, years until you retire in, take retirement year, convert it to a string, and then there's that almost there message. Okay? So that's how we're taking this code and we're using something that exists to find out what day is it, what time is it. And we're also breaking our code into compartmentalized little functions or methods. And then we can call them as many times as we want. Apologize for that quick little phone call there. We're at the end of this. Now, be sure that you go through the assignment instructions step by step. I may not have everything in here that you need. Make sure that it's there. Look to see what I'm asking you for. Did you do what needed to be done the way it needed to be done? Are the comments there explaining what you're doing, why you did it that way? What assignment is this for? Need a comment up the top. Your name, the class, what assignment it is. Okay? So, with that said, see you in the next video.